All right, Grand Rising, everyone. This is Ron, Saturday, December 13th, a little after 10 a.m. Let's see if we have any questions. Real interesting discussion last Monday with our last meeting. We talked about prayer, so specifically praying for those who have transitioned. We even talked about the uh, scripture, I think, in First Corinthians, where it addresses that. And Pastor made gave us an example of prayer that he had done for someone. And we talked about that. So we talked about a number of other things, but I think that was pretty much surrounded our discussion. So uh, anyone, any questions on any aspect of that before we see if there's anything else that may have your attention? Okay. Is there anything that may have happened this week or anything you thought of, questions or comments? Right there. Uh, Pastor, did you have any follow-up from what we discussed Monday?
No follow-up, but I wanted to reiterate the fact that unelevated ancestors could become an asset when when they are repaired from the damage that they caused and endured while they were in the earth in human bodies. And I don't think that we really completed it before the start. Again, I don't know. I do understand also that the repairing of those who are unelevated helps to break cycles and to erase negative patterns, and it begins to heal diseases, and it prevents the same type of elements from continuing throughout generations. When I take that and couple it with something that Charles said in regards to um, the breach that was created by Trump's election. That breach meaning that the door to complete freedom for the children of Kabbalah was opened. When I take it and couple it with that and see the pattern of change that is in progress even now as we speak. And what I'm saying is that when I couple it with that, I see us not so much moving away from or being ignorant or unaware of who we are, but beginning to get to a place where we are forced to reevaluate those things that we left behind, mainly those things that created community for us, as well as those things that we used from the earth to bring healing to our bodies. The main gist of what Charles had said, excuse me, speaks to the 400 years that existed from 1619 to 2019, and the change that we started to see, not only in terms of the transference of wealth, but in the uh, the pilgrimage that African people were taking away from the church. That pilgrimage that has led us to a place where we find that the overwhelming majority of young people are no longer Christians. They no longer believe that this same religion that enslaved us is a religion that will free us. They've begun to look at universal spirituality, and they have embraced it, and that moved the needle quite a bit, meaning that it moved them from walking away from the church walking away from being atheists and walking into a place of being spiritualists. And that needle moved by 38% within a couple of years. So when I take that and look at the unelevated, what I see is that a healing has taken place and is continually to take place. And that healing is in regards to being healed from a mindset of the European that has kept us in a state of bondage. And in this particular case, in a place of self-bondage, as opposed to having been kept in bondage by an oppressor. And when we look at the demise of the oppressor at the hands of our Creator, we began to see the elevation of the children of Akebalon. So I see elevation in this regard in multiple ways. But the mainstay of this elevation is in regards to those who were not elevated after they left the bodies, and the lack of elevation after having left the body is not only due to the manipulation that was done to us by those who knew better, but it's also an elevation of those who really didn't know any better. And now that elevation is being seen within our community of Cabelonians. We're beginning to see a spiritual elevation that goes beyond what we thought was spiritual elevation, and that was that charismatic mindset, which is really a more in-depth and a deeper racist attitude about people of color. We've seen it for what it is, and our children, who we think are just in the street, are not. They are in a flow of divinity that we never experienced at the ages that they are, and the damage that we have seen and are seeing in our neighborhoods is nowhere near at the levels that it was before this elevation begun. And so I think when we talk about praying for the unelevated, it is not only for those who left. Let me back up. I don't think this. I'm very much aware that when we talk about the unelevated, we're not only talking about the ones who left the bodies and are now in a state where they were unelevated and waiting to be elevated, but that also is applicable to those who are in church. They are the walking dead. They have left their spiritual state, and in leaving their spiritual state, they have become the walking dead, just as dead as those. Matter of fact, they are more dead, and if that is a phrase, they are more dead than those who have left their bodies. The people who are still entangled in Christianity, especially Islam and all the other religions, are in a greater state of death than those who have exited the body. And the reason I know that to be true is because those who have exited the body, who are unelevated, are crying out to be elevated, because they now see what elevation looks like, and they are very much aware of their shortcomings while they dwelled in this earth. Those who are entangled in Christianity and other religions are ignorant to this day to the essence of who they are, and they fight to stay in bondage, harder than they fight to be out of bondage. As a matter of fact, those who are in bondage will fight you to stay in bondage, as opposed to listening at that which resonates with them and walking free from bondage. So last week, a question was asked of me, and that question was, what can we do about the others who are unelevated in relationship to the one of whom I spoke? Well, since then, I have been shown that we have the authority to elevate everyone who has transitioned this life. And that is shown to me by virtue of having shown me that the ones who are fighting to stay unelevated are the ones who are still in the bodies. And if we are putting things in the macro that can elevate them, then we also have the authority to put things in the macro to elevate those who transitioned and who are unelevated. Why? Because those who transition and are unelevated are crying out to be elevated. They are crying out, yes, to elevate those who are still in their bodies during this period. But they are crying out to be elevated, and we have the authority to elevate them. When Paul wrote that segment about praying for the dead, of course it was manipulated and should never have been left in there based upon Christianity, because no one seems to want to understand it, at least in the past. So what I'm saying is that was left in there for such a time as this, to say to us, you have the authority to elevate them beyond where they were when they left. They are waiting for you, just as the earth is waiting for you. The consciousness of this earth is waiting for you to be redeemed, so redemption can be brought to the consciousness of the earth. And that is another way of saying, as above, so is below. Those who have transitioned bodies are waiting for us to elevate them. And this day, I declare that we are elevating them as we elevate ourselves. I am saying to you that with the authority that's granted us by our Creator, and understanding that we have been living as mere men, and we no longer do that. We are now Elohim, and we know beyond the shadow of any doubt that we are, which says that we have the authority to do whatever is necessary to enhance the growth and understanding of mankind within this earth consciousness. And because we have that authority, today we elevate those who transition their bodies and was in a state of bondage, crying out to be forgiven and healed from those things that they did to hurt and damage humanity when they were in the earth. The main culprit now, the main focus, I should say, not culprit, because the culprit is the European. The main focus now is to elevate those who are in these Christian church, Islamic, synagogue, Judaism type religions that has no basis in spirituality at all. And when I talk about we are to elevate, I'm talking about elevating the children of Akebalon. And the reason I say that is because without the elevation of the children of Akebalon, there will be no elevation for humanity. And that is because the children of Akebalon are not destined to be divine. The children of Akebalon are divine who have lost a sense of destiny. Let me say that again. The children of Akebalon are not destined to be divine. They are divine and have lost the sense of their destiny. And now that it is incumbent upon us to elevate the mindset of the children of the Son, that they may be able to realize that their eye must be open so that they can see that they are divine. And and by us doing that, we bring them to a state of elevation that they have never experienced since the beginning. And we also bring humanity to a place where balance can be manifested. If the children of Kabbalon are not are not are not a focus for the opening of the eyes, then no one else can be a focus for that. Why? Because the idea of what is there's the scripture that talks about. I think it's love begin at home, or we must express our integrated love for each other, and then love flows abroad. Love flows outside of the community, but it can't flow outside of the community if it does not have its inception in the community. So our desire for the opening of the eye and the understanding of the Kabbalonians who are in self bondage must be primary before it can flow into the hearts of others who are also in bondage. Our sense of focus cannot be molded by the our sense of academia. Our sense of religion when it comes to how we were taught in religion. We cannot wait for God to change them. We cannot wait for God to open their eyes, because if we are waiting for God to open their eyes, then their eyes will never be opened, because we are God and we are the ones to grant them the opportunity to open their eyes to be able to see. And what I'm being shown is that the way we do that is not by giving them a footnote of what we understand, not by just spreading into the macro the wisdom and the understanding of that wisdom, but we are to flood the macro. And in flooding the macro, we must do it with heat signatures, with energy signatures of a Kabbalon, because regardless of whether or not our people are engaged in religion, are engaged in Trumpology, it doesn't matter. There is a signature in them that our signature matches. And when our desire is for our signatures of energy to penetrate their sense of being, it is then that they begin to feel something that's different, to experience something that they have not experienced before, but it makes sense to them. And they cannot explain the sense that it makes to them, but they do understand that there is something happening that is different than it ever has. In order for that to be most effective, our desire is, first of all, to rid the pulpits of those who are keeping them in a state of bondage. And the one way of doing that is by raising that sense of awareness of who we are. And in doing so, it will cause them to raise questions to those who are in pulpits who have ran away from making any efforts to understand the answers that people are searching for. Also, the same signature is within those who are in those pulpits, and they too have opportunity to have these experiences that we are putting in the macro, so they too can repent for being so forceful and arrogant about the way that they have engaged in making sure that we remain in a bondage that's self-imposed. So when we talk about the elevation of the unelevated, we are also talking about those who are still in these bodies. But I do know that the most important elevation that can take place is the elevation of those who are a member of the Walking Dead. Religion is an organization that promotes death while still in these bodies, and anything and any of the children of Akebalon who are walking outside of the parameters that we were created in, meaning that those parameters of spiritual essence, the parameters that guide us along this spiritual journey, is part of the Walking Dead. Why? Because the mindset of the European is the essence of death itself. The mindset of the European has taught us that we are to reach out to a God that is outside of us. The mindset of the European has taught us that anything that does not look like them is not to be worshiped, is not to be submitted to, and it is up to us to change that. And we change that by virtue of making sure that our focus is on those who are of the Walking Dead. These movies that we've been shown on TV and in movie theaters about the Walking Dead, they are very valid, but not valid in the sense that they presented them in these movies, but they are valid in the sense that they do exist because of this sense of separation from the divine. So the healing work, the healing that must be done, the deliverance that we are engaged in is actually doing shadow work on behalf of those who don't know what shadow work is, on behalf of those who are living in the shadows of distress, who are living in the shadows of oppression, and seeking to be freed from that oppression at the hand of those who are doing the oppressing. And one of the classic examples of what we are seeing now, of what I'm talking about, is a group of people who are from the continent of Africa, who call themselves Somalis and call themselves Muslims and call themselves Arabs, have a sense of self-hate that is equal to the self-hate that we see in this country by people who look like us, seeking to be like those who are the oppressors. All of a sudden, the oppressor opened the floodgates of hate, and they began to see something that they have been in denial about all of their lives, and that is that they are African and not Arabs, that they are spiritualists and not Muslims, and that they are not separated from us. The reason that they had to do what they did in terms of separating from us is to become a mirror for those who live in our midst, who has done the same thing. The difference is that the Somalis said that they are Muslims, and the people in our midst who grew up with us say that they are Christians. The Muslims say that they are Arabs. The Somalis say that they are Arabs. The Africans in this country say that they are Caucasian, not by verbalizing it, but by their actions. It doesn't matter what you call yourself. Let me see how you walk in this life. And if your walk in this life is a walk that shows that you desire to be the image of the one who oppresses you, then you are seeking to be a Caucasian, just like the Somalis are seeking to be an Arab. So now it's time for the cover to be pulled off of the Africans who are in America, just as it has off of the Somalis. It is time for those who believe that they have made it, or that they have been accepted into a society of oppression. It is time for them to suffer the pain, so that they too can see that they have been separated from their people by their mindset and not by their presence. It is going to be very difficult and painful for those of us who have people in our families who are caught up in this mindset of being a quote unquote American. And I'm not talking about American by landmass. I'm talking about American by policy. And so it is time for those who have separated themselves from our essence in order for them to feel like that they are Caucasian without saying the word Caucasian, to feel what it means to be a Caucasian who is unacceptable to those who are in places of manipulation. So we have before us a tremendous task. We have before us a labor of love that will appear to be a labor of pain, but it is a labor of love. And that labor of love is the elevation of those who are in our midst to this day. There is no question, there is no doubt in my heart, my mind, or my soul. There is no doubt whatsoever that those of us who are the children of Ocabelon were transported to the place where we are for the express purpose of freeing those who are engaged or in self-hatred. We were brought here to be not just this tip of the spear, but the arbiters of wisdom. We were brought here to be the ones who understand the nature of the pain and suffering that we have that has been meted out to us, so that we could bring deliverance to those who are to come after us, and to open the eye of those who are still occupying the physical space of Ocabelon, so that all of mankind can be free. Because until God recognizes that it is God, there is no God in the earth. Until God recognizes that it is God, there is no God in the earth. If you are a doctor and you don't recognize you're a doctor, and you begin to work on engines and think that you are a physical doctor, a medical doctor, then you are fooling yourself. So it is incumbent upon us to recognize who we are before we can be who we are. If we don't totally embrace the divinity that we are, there will be no divinity in the earth. And now that we have made a decision that regardless of what it takes, we are embracing the divinity that we are. Now that we have made that decision, it is now time for us to be a true mirror to those around us. You don't have to tell anyone that you are Elohim. You don't have to say that you're God. You don't have to say that you're divine. Just live who you are. Just be the presence wherever you go. Just be that presence in the midst of the chaos that surrounds all of us. Just be the one whose energy does not have to be verbal. It simply is present. And the presence of the power of that energy causes others to wonder what's different about you. And the questions begin to flow, and you give the answers without being religious. And there is a sense of being religious and calling it spirituality. We must avoid that. You don't have to quote scriptures or belittle anyone. Just allow the essence of your divinity to flow from your lips just as easily as the rivers flow over the rough passages in that riverbed. Allow yourself to be who you were created to be. Stop holding back. The thing that the piece that Audrey sent, her assessment of it was spot on when she talked about allowing the words to flow from us, that brings about creativity, or that creates an environment that is conducive to all of us. These are the principles that we have been charged to adhere to and to share. We don't have to share them simply by teaching them. And there are some of those of you who seem to wonder, why is it that the teachers meet in a space of seclusion? And if you think about what happened is, deliverers always meet in a place of seclusion when they are being led to chart to remember rather what they have taught, remember the path that they have traveled, and to plot another path, a new pathway towards deliverance. When the scripture talks about the deliverer taking the disciples and them going into a secluded place, that secluded place is a place where you are empowered to move beyond where you were before you went into that state of seclusion. And now here we are looking at something that has eluded us for years, and that is praying for the dead. And I, in the beginning, looked at it as praying for the dead of those who transitioned, because that was the guidepost that led me to praying for this individual person. And in doing so, I saw that the aperture opened wider and allowed me to see that it is also those who are dead who are still breathing with blood flowing through their veins. So now, now that we understand this, now that we see the validity of what we are talking about, it is time for us to understand how to open the channels and keep those channels open. The channels of which I speak are the channels between the ancestors and those of us who are still in these bodies. It is imperative that these channels remain open. And the reason it is imperative for these channels to remain open, it is no different than a river that is flowing and now it is clogged up because all of the things that has been put in the way of the water. And the water now has to be slowed down and find a way to get through those things that has impeded its progress. I'm saying to you now that when we keep these channels open, there will be nothing to impede our progress. And the way to keep the channels open, yes, one way to do that is through meditation. I don't have to be sitting in my room to meditate. I can meditate while driving. If my desire is to always remain in a state of meditation, the state of meditation is not a physical thing that we do. The state of meditation is a spiritual principle that we live with every day, if that is our desire. So I am saying that to keep the channels open is to live constantly in a state of meditation. All of those things that we do physically in order to bring about spiritual results are those things that becomes a reminder to us of who we are. When we are at a state of knowing beyond the shadow of a doubt of who we are, we don't have to go through those physical channels anymore, because we have become the very channel that we are keeping open. And in keeping that channel open, one of the major things is for us to understand the pouring of libations. The idea of the pouring of libations is precluded by a prayer. And the prayer that is precluded by is an acknowledgement of the ancestors. It is not asking for anything, but is recognizing everything. This whole idea of the point of libations has been shown to us as a mechanism of acknowledgement, as opposed to a mechanism of a channel opening. The channel is open through meditation. Libation is an acknowledgement of that channel being open. And the reason that is so true is because libation is about acknowledging the ancestors, which means that the channel is already open. Otherwise, you would not know to acknowledge them. So when we do this, the primary liquid that is used is water. And the reason water is used in libation primarily is because water it is a technology that cleanses. It is a technology that cleanses spiritually as well as physically. It also it has such a powerful force with it until nothing can stop it. Water overpowers everything that's in its wake. And water is able to not only overpower whatever is in its wake, but is also able to purify whatever is in its wake. It's also able to move it out of the way. So those who follow it, the water that follows it does not encounter the same obstacles that it encountered when opening that passageway, when making that pathway clear, when making the crooked way straight. The water behind it does not have to go through all of those changes. We pour libations out of sincerity and honesty. This is not an act of ritual at all. This is a principle of recognition, a principle that says to us and that says to all around us that not only do we know who we are, but we live according to the principles of Ma'at, meaning that the Ma'atic principles are there to govern our lives. And the governing of our lives brings us to an awareness that goes far beyond anything that we have ever dreamt of. And the idea of pouring these libations, as I said, is an acknowledgement. So the more we do libations, the more we are in a state of acknowledging the connectivity or the unicity between the ancestors and us. This is far more powerful than doing communion on the first Sunday. Communion on the first Sunday was a ritual that kept us in bondage to a principle, a set of principles that did not have our best interests at heart. The communion kept us dedicated to a set of principles that were designed to keep us in bondage, and to keep us in bondage to the extent that subconsciously we were always bowing and always being submissive to those who kept us in bondage. There are people to this day who would talk about how great, talk about how evil Trump is, but they will whisper about it in the presence of white people because our folk don't want them to hear what we're saying. That is a sense of fear. And I'm saying that it is not necessary to publicly denounce anything, but it is necessary to publicly live the life of Elohim so that you can bring everything to a place of balance. So when I begun talking about this unelevated beings, I did not have a sense of bringing all of this and connecting it to the idea of libations. However, it is necessary that it be done. During the period of the triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, when all of these disappearances were taking place, and when libations were poured out there, they were done with an African as well as a Caucasian, and it settled down. The space for the Bermuda Triangle is not only were there bodies there of enslaved people who were shipwrecked or who were thrown overboard, but also it is in the place where Atlantis existed, and the energy field was chaotic in that area because of what had transpired with the slave trade, with the Atlantic slave trade, but also chaotic because of the way that Atlantis disappeared beneath the waters. So now there is a sense of balance there, and the waters there are no longer chaotic. And just as those waters were calmed, it is up to us to bring a sense of calmness to the environment that we live in by virtue of pouring out the libations of water so that peace can prevail in the face of adversity, so that the peace that prevails in the face of adversity will be the peace that we are, without having to follow adversity that is in our environment, meaning that we can be in the midst of all of this adversity. We can listen at the adversity, but at the same time remain in a state of peace, because when nothing shakes God, nothing causes God to become undone. Nothing causes God to be submissive to anything of an adversarial nature. It causes God to bring peace, to desire to bring peace to everyone, as well as it inspires us to be the burden bearers for those who are weakened to the point where they cannot carry their own burdens. I'm done.
Grand Rising family, I have a question, a couple of questions. One goes back to when Pastor, you talked about heat energy being put into the macro. Is that the same as vibration or resonance? Because both
Yes,
of those are examples of energy as well.
it is. Yes.
Okay. And then the second part of in addition to the libation, is not gratefulness an important part of that as well? I understand acknowledgement and appreciation and thankfulness. And I guess if I say thankfulness is the same thing as gratefulness, correct?
It has to be. Gratefulness is always there. And as you said, thankful, gratefulness are the same. But yes, it has to be there. Because without the presence, of the overt presence of gratefulness, then arrogance began to creep in. And it becomes see me as opposed to change us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So this whole sense of belief about pastoral leadership and worship is a sense of ungratefulness. When you are in leadership and your desire is to serve rather than to be served, that in itself is an expression of gratefulness. And that's one of the things I mean when I talk about you don't have to tell anyone who you are. Just live the life that you are. Just be who you are. Any other questions or
Grand
comments?
Rising family. Yes, Grand Rising family. This is Kathy, Pastor. I have one more question about libations. So, when you're pouring out libations, is it necessary to call individual names of those of our ancestors that we know who have passed on, or can you say in honor of all ancestors and do it that way?
When we're pouring out libations, the way that you do it varies. Usually, when you are in a funeral setting, you call out the names of ancestors. When you are in the process, excuse me, of garnering or of acknowledging rather the ancestors as we were before we entered our period of study, you call names if you choose to. We could have just easily made the statements of prayer and then poured out the libation without calling names. The experience that we had during prior to our session as teachers a couple of weeks ago was done for the express purpose of familiarizing those of us who have been chosen to teach, to explore and understand this journey for a method of teaching, so that we would become more comfortable with the concept of pouring libations. You can pour libations simply by saying that I acknowledge the presence of all of the ancestors who have gone before me. And because of the journey that you have traveled, and because of the affinity that you have shown for us who are behind you, we pour out these libations to acknowledge our understanding that we are one with you and that you've never left us, and then pour the libations. Ashe. Does that help you?
Ashe. Yes, thank you.
And the idea of Ashe, as I said before, Ashe is not a period behind a sentence. Like we use amen to end the prayer. Ashe is opening a gateway to the next space that we are to move into. It is opening a gateway for more energy to flow, so that those things that we desire for humanity are brought into existence. The word amen, so let it be, means that this is the end of it. Let it be what it is now and no more. However, the word amen is actually been misconstrued, because the word amen comes from the conjunction of Ra, of Amen Ra. Amen Ra is a contraction of the gods that the spiritual entity or essence of southern Egypt and northern Egypt brought together as one. So that's where amen actually comes from, Amen Ra, and the Hebraic understanding of it leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to the Kemetic understanding of what Amen Ra is, as opposed to what it means. I hope that helps clarify that understanding. Thank you. Questions? Comments?
I guess one of the things that really stands out to me, what you said, was giving some thought to the unelevated that have transitioned and being able to see them differently, and not just individually, but I just pictured, when we were talking the other night, I just pictured some that still may have transitioned and see things differently, and having an oh my God kind of moment. And we can free them from that, regardless of whether or not they're Johnsons or Catos or Richards or whatever. We can free them from that. And that to me is a beautiful thing. So, and I had not considered the unelevated also being those who have not transitioned. I had not thought about it from that degree. But thank you for that.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
So, Pastor, I have another question. Are the unelevated ones, will they be the ones that the scripture references as being under the altar crying out? I think that's in Revelations, that there are those that are like under the altar waiting for us to get it correct. Would that be the unelevated ones?
Yes. Not only are they under the altar in a spiritual state crying out, but the question is, why are they under the altar? The altar is a place of sacrifice. Sacrifice is not about losing anything. Sacrifice is about elevating everything. I'm at this altar because I want to sacrifice all of those things that impeded me from recognizing who I am before I transition from this body. Those things, you sacrifice those things at the altar in order for you to be elevated, not to lose anything. And just as they are under the altar in a spiritual state, so are those who are in this in this earth in these bodies. The bodies that they are, that becomes, their body becomes the altar. The religion rather becomes the altar upon which they sacrifice everything that they thought the truth to be, so that they can be elevated to a state of an awareness of who they are. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
There is always, you're welcome, thank you. There is always an altar in play in our lives. I always go back to who told you were naked, who told you that you were without divinity, who told you that you were unclothed in divinity, who told you that you had no relationship to divinity. Who told you that? Now that that you have embraced that you have no sense of divinity, it is time for you to search for your divinity from within. And here we are in search of our divinity. Now that we have found this, now that we have become aware rather of the divinity that we are, so I said that you're God, so why are you still walking around as though you are a human? Why are you still crying at night because you can't pay a bill in the morning? Why are you crying because you want Donald Trump to be out of office? You have even desired for his demise to take place because he's so wrapped up in evil. Why are you still mourning the way that you are as a mere human when I have told you that you are God? And when you are God, you don't have to spend your time wondering what Trump is going to do next, or you don't have to spend your time talking about voting him out of office, because out of all the voting you have done, you are still in bondage. That is not your course of freedom. Out of all the voting you've done, you have never changed the system. The system has always remained intact, and it has always been a burden to you. It has always been a state, God kept you rather, in a state of bondage. It is time for you to start relying on who you are, as opposed to a system that has kept you in bondage and blinded to who you are. When you embrace who you are, you don't have to concern yourself with how the system functions, because when you know who you are the system, but not the system that creates bondage. You are the system of deliverance. You are the power of deliverance. You are the essence of deliverance. You are the only energy that has ever existed in this earth that could bring deliverance to humanity. You understand that the Caucasian mindset has studied more about Kemet than you ever have. And the mindset of the Caucasian is a desire for power. And there are spaces in the earth where there are portals that open into other spiritual spaces of understanding, and that's what they are in search of. The reason they replicated the city of Kemet, the reason they replicated Memphis and Alexandria and all the other cities, and they replicated them and put them in one place in this Western world. And they took rudiments from each space in Kemet, and the things that they took were antennas of power, and they took those things and made them their own, because they understood that with these things they were able to control you if you believe that they are your God.
So the sacrifice is about removing any impediment that prevents the essence of divinity from flowing through you. A sacrifice is not losing anything; it's gaining everything. It's gaining who you are. So, like any of those impediments could be like a beaver that dams the water flow and stays in its own little pond and that's all it knows. But when you remove that dam, and you allow the water to flow, your world increases. The world you see yourself in as divine, as a divine being, has no boundaries then. So sacrifice is not a negative thing. It is a thing that brings you closer, if that's your desire. It moves you closer to being the essence of who you truly are.
Yes. All of that's true. Yes. Right now, because of our having embraced who we are, we have all the antennas, for lack of a better word, that we need in order to bring a continuous flow of energy into this earth. On every continent of this earth, there are pyramids. And the pyramids on this earth were constructed by Babylonians. And they're on every continent for a reason. For the express purpose of capturing the flows of energy into the earth to be utilized by Elohim, by the gods in this earth, in order to bring balance. If you can close your eyes for a moment and see all of these points of pyramids scattered all over the earth, and if you can imagine from the sun there are rays that touches the tip of every single pyramid on this earth and spreads down the base of the pyramids and spreads from the base of these pyramids to the floor to the ground, and every portion of the landmass that they sit upon is bathed in the energy, the flow of energy from the base of these pyramids. And at the same time, these energy forces from the sun are touching the crown of every Babylonian on earth. And you are being energized from the floor of the earth to the crown of your head. And all of the energy has its genesis from the same place. And the force of that energy changes things, energizes things in different ways, even though it is the same force of energy. We have this opportunity to walk barefooted upon the earth and be energized from below as well as from above. And being energized from below as well as from above brings us to a recognition that as so above, so is below, and as below, so is above, that we have become the antenna for the earth as we have received from the antenna that's upon the earth. That grants us a sense of remembrance that exceeds any remembrance that we could imagine. Not only that, but with this flow of energy, it bathes us in the cloak of Akashic consciousness and guides us with the single eye of Elohim. It guides us with the single eye of our Creator. And it encapsulates us with the understanding of the Akashic consciousness so that we open our mouths and this knowledge flows. But along with the flow of the knowledge come understanding as well. And that reminds us that we are one yet many, without regard to where we are geographically located. We are still one yet many. And the focal point of this energy is no longer there in Kemet. the focal point of this energy is in this landmass where we are. It is not that Kemet has lost any power. It is that wherever the tip of the sword for deliverance is, there lies the center of life itself. And the center of life, the center of deliverance for humanity is in this landmass. And because it is in this landmass, we are the center of life for humanity. When you think about how the Europeans rampaged Kemet and they forced Kemites to leave the area and push towards the west into Africa. And as a result of that, the energy of Kemet, the life of Kemet, the inhabitants of Kemet, all were pushed into the interior of Africa, of Akabalon, and even to the west coast. And we are a combination of all of the energy forces of that landmass that was called Africa. We are the centerpiece of that. And being the centerpiece of that, we are the deliverers of humanity. And you say, how did we become the centerpiece of that? Because where the most vicious power lies that controls the entire world, there also must be the seed of life that is able to dispense with the evilness of this power source. And we are that seed of life that has been implanted in this place for the express purpose of bringing bringing deliverance to humanity. We are that power source. So now, since Kemet is spiritual, it is not about a physical location. The spiritual nature, the spiritual essence of Kemet is wherever there is a desire to embrace the reality of who you are. And wherever that desire is, and that desire germinates, that desire is delivered. Where? In the midst of the greatest evil the earth has ever known. That egg, having germinated and been delivered, has been delivered right here in this landmass in a spiritual sense. Therefore, this spiritual space that we occupy is the spiritual space of deliverance. And that is the reason that we are seeing the upsurge of so much evil right now, because the center of evil for the earth is right here where we are. And the transposing of that is in the hands of those who know who they are. Yes, there are others like us, but they are not doing what we are doing. They are receiving from the energy that we are putting in the macro, and that's giving them the wherewithal, the understanding, the wisdom to do what they are doing in terms of bringing deliverance to this landmass that's called Africa, which is actually the cradle of life itself. Now, understanding it from a spiritual perspective, we have become the cradle of life for humanity. This is not arrogance, this is reality. We have become that center of life for humanity, because in order for humanity to live as it was designed to live, the shell that keeps it encapsulated must be dispensed with. The husk must fall away. And the husk that I'm speaking of is the center of this nation, this country, America. America is the most evil nation to ever face this earth. There has never been atrocities anywhere in this earth, especially against the people of Akabalon. never been worse than what they are in this country. It has always been the center of hatred towards its God. It has always been the center of desire to change places or to transfer the principles of its God to itself. It has always been the angels who have stood in the space that it called holy and declared itself to be God. It has always done that, and been cast from this from the place of energy, meaning that when we took all the energy, when we repurposed it, when we reappropriated it, that means that those messages that were cloaked in this pseudo spirituality came to be rather visible to those who were caught up in it. So now that Christianity has been exposed for what it is, now that this pseudo God has been exposed for what it is, the true essence of God can be seen and is being seen. And that is the reason that our children are clinging to universality or spirituality as opposed to trying to break down a church door and change somebody from within. It is different now than it ever has been, and it never shall change again, because the change is in us, and the change that is in us is recognizing that we are God who brought humans into existence, and it is incumbent upon us to bring these humans out of bondage into a place of comfort and peace and well-being. I'm done.
As you spoke, what resonated with me, everything that you said, including what you just said, was the fact that, like the communion,
Bob, you got background noise.
libation. I have a lot of background. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Like the communion, libation is taking the place of what we knew as communion before, because libation then represents being grateful for, acknowledging, remembering the ancestors and the Akashic consciousness that we all have access to. And the libation represents a pouring out of that Akashic consciousness onto I want to say, the physicality, are those walking dead, if you will, are those not only the walking dead, but those who've gone on before. It just symbolizes a accessing and a pouring out of that Akashic consciousness into the macro for availability by everyone who accepts it.
Yes, it is. Why? Because Isaiah wrote, "Who told you to make a sacrifice? I didn't tell you to make a sacrifice, a blood sacrifice. To kill a bull is no different than killing a man. To drink the blood of an animal or the blood of a human is cannibalism." And we have been steeped in cannibalism without even knowing it. When we do libations, it is not about drinking the blood of an animal. It is not about cannibalizing anything. It is about acknowledging the unicity of everything, with that water being an expression of congealed or spirit. It represents spirit that we can see with our eye, spirit that keeps our bodies alive. Communion is an expression that is embraced by cannibals. The drinking of the blood, even in masonry, the drinking of the blood is the desire or the belief that you usurp the power of the one whose blood that you drink. So when you drink the blood from an animal, you are taking its strength. And when we talk about cannibalism, it's not only limited to the drinking of the blood or the eating of the human flesh. Our culture has been cannibalized. We say that it was appropriated by them meaning the oppressors. They have taken the power, or attempted anyway, to take the power from our culture and make it theirs and benefit from it. Just as drinking the blood symbolizes taking the power from those whose blood you drink and making it your own. So we see now that it is a difference between the libation and the communion that Barbara mentioned, a difference that is so powerfully different until it transposes us from being committed every first Sunday to a nature of cannibalism. It transposes us to being the gods that we were created to be by virtue of understanding the real essence of libations as opposed to the barbaric nature of cannibalism. Questions or comments?
One seems to be more of a taking and the other of a giving. Libation is a giving and a sharing, whereas the communion is a taking and then the eating and it's totally different.
Yes, it's different. Ask yourself a question. Even before COVID, when was the last time we did communion? I didn't know that we were not doing communion because of what I just said. I felt we were not doing communion because we weren't supposed to. And I mentioned that to some of you, that we were not supposed, and I did not know the reason why we were being separated from that. But now I do. There are things in our lives, when you're committed to this journey, there are things in your life that you let go of, and you don't understand why, but you know you need to. And then down the road, as you travel the journey, you are shown why it was necessary for you to separate yourself from it. And in this case, we had to separate ourselves from a commitment to cannibalism, a commitment to a barbaric nature, a commitment to a pseudo-spiritual ritual that had no effect other than one that kept us in a state of flux between spirituality and religion.
So, Pastor, I'm not sure how to form my question, but if I'm hearing you correctly, because this is resonating deeply about communion. Communion, it sounds like what you're saying is that communion is the representation of the cannibalism that was directed at our bodies, because the slave masters and things would kill us and eat our bodies as well, too.
Yes.
To try to take our energy away.
Yes.
And so basically, through religion and the continued entrapment, the entity, quote unquote, of Jesus, drink my blood, eat my, this is my flesh, this is my body, which is broken for you, blah, blah, blah. All of that seems to be almost a continuation of that cannibalistic ritual, if that's what I'm hearing you say. And without even recognizing why we stopped doing it or even giving thought to it, the ancestors directed us away from that.
Yes.
And so that was always some type of ritualistic bondage that we didn't even realize we were participating in. because we didn't even understand what it represented. And is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Your perception is that this entity called Jesus was a European. You paint that image of that European on the walls of your church and hang them in your home. In your heart, you think that this entity, Jesus, was a European. And you are drinking this blood in remembrance of this European who brought deliverance to you. And this becomes your subconscious God that you pay tribute to. While at the same time, this European knows that this entity that's been described as a Caucasian is actually the spiritual essence of an African. And it drinks that blood with that realization. And it seeks to take the power of that African, while at the same time you, because of your thoughts, because of what you have been imbued with, are drinking that blood out of submission to that European who has been presented to you as your Savior. So there is a dual purpose of communion, strength and power being usurped from the African in terms of that blood that is being ingested by the European, and submission of that because of that blood that is being ingested by the African or by the Babylonian. In church on Sunday mornings, that means nothing to the evangelical, but it means everything to the Mason, the 33rd degree Mason, the European Masonry around the world that has sought to usurp the power of the African, know very well when they drink from that chalice what that represents. That represents the power, the essence, the strength of the African. And they are ingesting that because they do not, did not, and do not understand the nature of the spiritual essence and the teachings of Kemet. But they knew enough to believe that to ingest that blood would give them that strength and power over and of the one from whom that blood flowed. Why is it that they didn't drink the blood of a bullock? Why did they drink the blood of a man? That is because they understood how to manipulate the mindset and to control those who has the true power, those who are the real power in the earth. I'm done. I hope that helped, Kathy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and you're welcome. Questions? Comments? Otherwise?
That everything has, it just gives new meaning to that phrase, the life is in the blood. It's a whole nother understanding of that.
Yes. Keep in mind, it says that the life of the man, the life of Adam is in the blood. Before there was a Abrahamic scripture, before we understood Hebrew and anything in the scriptures, there was always the essence of the spirituality of the Babylonian. And we didn't drink blood from beasts or from humans. We didn't do that. We were forced to do that. The idea of the life of the human being in the blood, the spiritual nature of the human is in the blood. The breath of the human is in the blood. If breath does not flow through the blood, the body does not live. The nature of the divine is the source of the life that's in the blood. The pattern for all life is in the flesh of the African woman. Every cell, every blood cell, all the essence of every human that is in the essence of the Acabelonian femininity. When we understand that what actually flows through that blood that gives life is the essence of who we are, it is then that we see that we're not divine to lord it over anyone. We are divine to bring peace and order that benefits everyone. That's simply who we are. I'm done.
Hey everybody, this is Audrey. Um, I'm just sitting here thinking, and what I'm hearing you say through all of this is basically we allowed ourselves to be sacrificed on the altar of religion, and then taking part in the sort of cannibalistic ritual of communion sort of sealed the deal that we sacrificed ourselves on the altar of religion.
Yes, over and over and over.
And it's going to take real, so I don't know, what does it take to pull us out of that? I know you're saying the pouring of libations. You're saying us putting things into the macro. And the other thing I want to say too is that even if you believe in the concept of Jesus, Jesus never taught or sanctioned religion per se. It was always the kingdom of heaven is within you. And it's up to you to cultivate it within yourself. So I guess I'm wondering if Acabelonians are so entrenched in terms of religion and have been, like we, have been doing these rituals for years. I mean, and I know it can all pretty change pretty much overnight. I know that. But I'm not sure what my question is. I'm just trying to pull together all you've been talking about. And then how we actually change things.
I feel your energy, Audrey. I'm experiencing your energy. I can respond to you.
Okay.
Everyone regardless of how long you have laid in the tomb, regardless of how frequently you have ingested the blood. In the twinkling of an eye, resurrection takes place. We have learned the lessons concerning the ancestors that we practiced. We have learned the lessons of libation and we practice. We understand the divine nature of who we are. We see very clearly that a Kabbalah is universal spirituality. Now that we see all of these things, these principles, not just the principles that I mentioned, but all of the principles that we have learned along the way. The most damnable principle has been that of cannibalism. Yet, it is the principle that is more freeing than all the rest of them. Because cannibalism has been a shackle that has blindly held us. Today, as you raise the question that you were trying to form, the question is, to me, what does it take to free us from all of this, especially cannibalism? Not just us who are in hearing distance or in sight of each other, but all of the us who have engaged. In order for humanity to be delivered, the deliverer must die and resurrect. And we have been dead for years. The walking dead in religion for years. And now this is our day of resurrection. So we don't resurrect individually. Our sense of resurrection is resurrecting humanity with the understanding that the individual physical person of resurrection is not there. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the resurrection of an Kabbalonian mindset that lives and breathes the reality that it is divine in nature. And because that the question from your womb is seeking to free the children that exited that womb, the response to that is simply resurrection. This is not about resurrecting the body. This is about resurrecting a mindset. This is about resurrecting the Kabbalonian essence of life itself. This is a freeing principle that will cause unsettledness in the hearts of those who are of a Kabbalonian descent. They will find it more difficult to engage in pagan rituals such as communion. They will find it more difficult to engage in pagan baptism rites. They will understand, or will hear rather, that something is wrong with it. Even if they don't understand it, they will struggle to hold on to it. And that struggle eventually will morph into a desire to understand the genesis, the essence. Why am I struggling so hard? And when that is done, it is then that they will see that something is wrong with this and walk away from it. So the simple the simple response to what you were raising is the resurrection of a mindset. Today, we roll the stone away. In other words, we remove the blinders that was keeping humanity, keeping the Babylonians in a state of death. We removed the blinders, as heavy and strong as they were. We removed them, and now the resurrection of our essence has taken place. And when you look into that place where we lay dead, you don't find us, neither do you find our essence. What you find are the coverings of this earth that was folded neatly and laid to the side. The coverings of this earth, meaning the material essence of religion that kept us in a state of death, that kept us in a sepulcher that was made of stone, something that we could not free ourselves from physically. But the spiritual message of who we are has rolled that stone away, and we are no longer in that sepulcher of death. Now we live. And we live because the first to come to that material womb called a sepulcher was the real womb of humanity. When the African woman came to the sepulcher and the stone was rolled away, is saying to us that the true womb, the womb that had been living in bitterness because it had a desire to bring its children to a place of reckoning, finally saw the opportunity, granted the understanding to do that, and came to that place where we were buried all of this time in the mountain of religion, and birthed the life of our spiritual essence so that we would no longer be clothed in the garments of religion. That's our resurrection. Did I respond to it?
Ashe.
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 Yes, you did. And silly me.
No.
It's the same thing I said yesterday. We see the vision. We align our thoughts with it. And we speak it. And then you just did that.
And you're not silly. It took that to bring us to this place, because without your question, would we have explored this answer? Would it have been birthed without you being pregnant? No. No. It's funny because the moment that you open your mouth, I felt from the depths of you the word resurrection, but did not really see it until you laid out what you did. So I can't think of anything that is more powerful than being resurrected from the dead. Yes, we're still in these battered and worn bodies. The wounds that were inflicted upon us are still there. But they're not there to carry us back to a place of death. They are there to remind us that there are still those who are us, who are still enduring the pain of abuse, the torture at the hands of oppressors. They are still suffering and crying out every single Sunday, Monday, every single day of the week. How long? How long must we go through this? The scars are with us so we don't forget and think that we have arrived, because you can't arrive at the place of unicity if you don't have in your heart the desire for all of us to arrive at the same time. And that is what brings our children to a place where they seek to rid themselves of a mindset that separates them from their God. That's who we are. I'm done.
Can I share something that I don't think is coincidence? This past weekend, not realizing the day of the Christian calendar that it was, a good friend of mine invited me to spend time with her family, and they were going to church. So when we got there, they were giving out the communion cup. And so I was like, okay, Regina, you need to make a decision. Are you going to participate in this ritual that you haven't done and you don't know how long? Or will you do it to, not be offensive to the people? And so since it was at the beginning of this time, I had a chance to really sit there and make that decision. And my decision was that I would do it, but I would do it with a consciousness that I was reminding myself of the God nature being in me in this space, in this time, like remembering some of the things that we talked about many years ago about who we are, and that we're continuing to unfold now, even in this space. And that it wasn't just about me, that everybody in that room would have an awakening of that by going through this process. So I'm sharing that, but there's a question, of course, at the end here. What about those, like how you spoke of, who are initiated into certain understandings? What are those intentions when they are doing this? And then how are our intentions, those of us who are consciously aware of what we're doing, how is that resonating in the earth?
Confusion. Confusion, because if people are taking communion, knowing that it's cannibalism, and they're taking it for the express purpose of freeing people from cannibalism, that doesn't bring order to them. However, every person must make the decision for themselves as to how they are going to respond to any ritual that is presented to them, especially if they understand the essence or the nature of the ritual itself. Am I saying that you or anyone else will be condemned because of that. No, I'm not. But I am saying that we have to make a decision about what we are doing, but more importantly, the why of it. Are we saying the why because we truly believe that? Or are we saying the why because we want to justify what we're doing? I can't answer that. Only the people who are involved are able to answer that. And that's the best answer I can give, a response I can give, Regina. I just don't know. Beyond that, I have tried my best to baptize with water for the last few years. And the first time that I was going to do the baptism, and that's when COVID hit. The next time, Phoebe was sick. I couldn't do it. And then every time something happened till we got to the point where we removed the thing that covered the pool. It was filthy. It had to be cleaned out. It was cleaned. And we never got to the place where we were able to do that. Why? Because my cry to the ancestors was, show me what to do. And there is no scripture that's justifiable for water baptism, and I've not been able to do that. That's a decision that I have to make for me. That's a decision that every one of us have to make for ourselves. So that's the best response I have, unless someone else would like to help me with this. I hope that helps you, Regina.
Yes, I guess definitely a perspective.
Thank you. Go ahead. You say you have another question? Are there any other questions or comments?
Regina, were you done?
Yes, I asked the question.
Okay.
So, Pastor, is water baptism, when you're saying these things, it's just awakening a whole lot of thoughts in me. So, is water baptism a sort of initiation into religion? Is that why you may not be able to do it? Because we are moving away from religion?
That's exactly what it is. Think about what was done during the period when the scripture talks about one will come whose shoes are not worthy to unbuckle. They were engaged in religious practices. And the pastors / priests were very arrogant in that their expectation was for everyone to move to the side when they walked through the marketplace. So they had bells on the bottom of their robes. So everyone recognized who they were and give way to them. And it is said that John says that there will come one whose shoes are not worthy to unbuckle. Meaning that there will come a time in our lives when we will come to the realization that this thing called religion and the rituals of it are not real. Then John also said that one will come who I baptize with water, but one will come who baptizes with the Spirit. And what John was saying is that the day will come when there will not be a ritual of baptism that binds us to a religion that is man-made, that hails the priest as God, as opposed to recognizing who they really are. And that one who comes will immerse us in the essence of spirituality, and we then will know who we are. Then he talks about, he and Jesus talks about the baptism of fire, which means that when you are immersed in spirituality, a purification takes place. And the purification that takes place is not from you being cussing and raising hell. The purification that takes place is a purification from religion, from the rituals of religion. And that one who comes is not a man wearing shoes. It is, in essence, a principle that is that is resonating with everyone, to the extent that the way that they travel is different than the journey that they were traveling prior to. And that one who comes is deliverance itself. And there will be an effort to destroy this essence, this sense, this spiritual nature, desire of religion, of spirituality rather. Yet it will appear that deliverance is dead. It will appear that all these years, the children of Akebalon, the spiritual children, have been lambasted and have been imprisoned by religion, will die out. Their desire for freedom will die, and they will be so steeped in religion until they desire nothing else. They will forget the one of whom John spoke, and they will wrap themselves in the cloak of religion. But the day will come when the crucifixion of this spiritual nature will let everyone in the world see that you can kill the body, but not the soul. And the body that represents deliverance will be killed. But lo, the day will come when the walking dead will have opportunity to see what life is like. And from the womb of a woman, a question will come. And that question is a question that cannot be raised verbally, but raised spiritually. And when that question is raised spiritually, there will be this femininity that appears at the place that is called the sepulchre of death. And there, at that point, the whole idea, the whole concept and principle of resurrection, of deliverance, will be seen as never having been dead, but have been aware in the hearts of men of his existence in those who were brought into this earth for the express purpose of being the God in this earth. And that's where we are now. Does that help you, Kathy?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Any questions or comments about that? Let's take a pause and let me do it by doing this, if you please. To the universe, the ancestors, the consciousness that envelops all of the inhabitants of Akebalon. We are most grateful that you have granted us the privilege to walk this earth in life as opposed to death. Before you, we lift up all of those who are still walking blindly through the hallways of religion. It is our desire that the trembling of the earth will bring down the walls of bondage, and the heat of the sun with each one of its rays will awaken from the sleep the African, the Akabelonian, who has slept for all of these years. That all of us may walk this journey with eyes open, with the eye open, and with the desire to bring humanity to a place of a peace that it has never experienced. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Lazarus, come forth now. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Enjoy your day.
Peace, love. Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, family.